I'm going to show you 3 winter gardening secrets that professional growers don't want you to know. What if I told you the most successful gardeners don't take winters off? In fact, they use this as an opportunity to grow more crops than some people grow all year long. Once I discovered this the hard way, unfortunately, I was able to pretty much grow more produce than I could actually handle. Not in the summer, but actually in the wintertime. New to gardening? No problem. Check out my free gardening guide in the caption below for ways to get started. These aren't complicated or expensive techniques, but rather easy and simple techniques that anyone can use, even if you have a small backyard garden. And to be honest with you, last year, my winter garden produced more than my spring garden this year, which I'm still kind of upset about, but I digress. On top of that, my spring garden actually came in early. And I'm gonna give you the secrets on how, so stay tuned. Listen, I love me some gardening, maybe a little bit too much, but I love it. And before I knew these secrets, winter was a little depressing for me because I didn't get to be where I wanted to be in my garden. But that all changed when I learned these strategies. Not to mention expensive, all those trips to the grocery store for produce. And if you've ever felt frustrated just watching your garden just sit there all winter long with nothing growing in it, well, you're in the right place. Stick around and let me show you how to completely transform your thinking about winter gardening. All right, let's get started. Before I can give you these secrets, we're gonna have to bust some myths. First myth, all plants die in the winter. Now we know that's not true, or we wouldn't be talking about winter gardening right now, right? No, we know that all plants do not die in the winter. And in fact, there are some plants that thrive and flourish in the wintertime, and some garden veggies that are actually sweeter and more delicious when harvested and grown in the wintertime than even in the spring and hot months. And I'm gonna give you some of those. Myth number 2, winter plants don't need frost care. All right, let's not get carried away, because this is on the opposite end of the spectrum here. Your winter plants still would benefit from some form of frost cover because the cold weather does dehydrate plants, and young plantlings do struggle to grow in the wintertime because they're cold and they're a little more vulnerable than some of those more hardy, more mature plants. So keep that in mind, especially if you're going to be starting some of those plants as smaller seedlings. You want to make sure you have some form of a frost cover for them. And there are different kinds of frost covers. There are thin, medium, and thick. So give your plants some kind of a cover so that it'll help kind of protect them from some of the damage that winter can cause. Myth number 3, winter is too cold to water and fertilize your plants. Quick question, do you get thirsty in the wintertime? Well, guess what? Your plants do too. And it's gonna be important that you do water them in the wintertime. Of course, you're gonna make sure that the water is a little not too cold and above freezing temperature so that your plants can actually absorb that water and so that it doesn't cause any root damage. And myth number 4, winter means no pests or weeds. Sorry, but that's just not true. I wish. But with winter, you still have some weeds. Just like your plants can grow, the weeds can grow. And there are still some cold hardy pests, like some ants. And so you wanna just make sure you have some kind of pest control methods in place as well. All right, so now let's talk about these 3 game-changing secrets to helping your winter garden grow. Secret number 1, know what you can plant and what you wanna plant. So we're talking about these cold hardy vegetables, and there's actually a lot of them. I have one word for you to start, brassicas. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's your broccolis, your cauliflowers, your bok choys, your Brussels sprouts, even your cabbage and your collard greens. Quick story. So I was growing my collard greens thinking, oh, you know, the summer's the best time. That's when it's warm because, hey, collard greens is a southern thing. So they're gonna need that hot, sunny weather and they're gonna just thrive and flourish, right? Completely wrong. I started to notice that my collard greens were suffering all summer long, like couldn't get it together. But as the weather started to get cooler, I started seeing these big, beautiful leaves start growing on them. And so basically, long story short, my collard greens were starting to thrive in the cooler weather. Who knew? Some other great cold weather veggies are your carrots, your celery, your green onions, or any kind of onions. Lettuce, kale, mustard greens, turnips, parsnips, radishes, Swiss chard, spinach, and even some turnips. And that's just to name a few. All right, so let's talk about timing of winter planting, because as we know, it's not just the weather that changes, it's the amount of sunlight we get. And so as it gets colder, there's less and less daylight time. Hello, daylight savings. So we have to keep that in mind in knowing that this is going to cause our plants to grow a little bit slower. So the best way to do this is to make sure that you're growing your plants at least 8 weeks before the first frost, which usually is around November. So you want to make sure that probably before daylight saving time, give it about 8 weeks before that, you're planting or getting started on your fall gardening plants. So if you're planting from seed, you're starting those seeds out early so that you have some hardy plantlings before it gets too cold and before there's less light, so that they'll keep growing even if they're growing a little bit slower. This also means that once they've reached their harvestable state, you really have like a giant winter fridge outside that's just holding your plants in the ground until you're ready to harvest them, because they're not gonna go bad. Mother Nature, AKA your own fridge. And if you're in the middle of the South, kind of like I am, I have a free planting guide that'll help you know when to start planting some of these cold hardy plants. So check it out in the caption below. And if you're a little late bird sometimes, like I have a tendency to be, you can always start your plants indoors and then transplant them when they're a little stronger and hardier outdoors, even though it's cooler, and just make sure you cover them with the frost cloth until they're able to get established. And this leads me to my next point. Secret number 2, protect your plants at all costs. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, definitely protect them. And so talking about some really cool ways to protect your plants, the first one is frost cloth or row cover, whatever you want to call them. And there's basically 3 different kinds. There's thin, medium, and thick. And that's what, it's like a large, usually white cloth that you put over your plants, and you'll lay them over your plants with a little bit of slack to give your shorter plants still an opportunity to plant and grow. And then you'll stake them around the edges to keep the frost cloth down and keeping the cold weather from coming underneath. And for your plants that grow a little taller, you can use stakes or hoops for those taller plants. And frost cloth is great because if you're using about the thin to medium thickness, you still get about 70 to 90% of the sunlight coming in to help grow those plants, as well as about 15% insulation, which is pretty much all your cold hardy plants need. You know, we're just trying to keep off that really chilly, cold wind that can whip it through. Another great option to protect your plants is mulching. They keep those roots warm and regulate the temperature of the soil so that you're not getting really big frost that will shock your plants, protects those roots, keeps away erosion from happening when those sharp winds come by, as well as retains moisture. And it also protects from those weeds, as well as provides a little nutrition for your soil as the mulching breaks down. And my favorite, secret number 3, prepare for spring early. Did you know that you can save your pepper plants for the following season? Let's talk about winterization, baby. So I love me some peppers, but the biggest problem that I have, especially I love hot peppers, is that when you plant them from seed, it just takes so long for peppers to grow to maturation. And so usually it's the end of the summer and I'm collecting all these peppers at one time instead of, getting them throughout the summer. And then it's like a short window because it's gonna get cold. So I went through all these months nurturing these pepper plants until they're ready to be harvested, only for them to die back? No way. So I winterize them or overwinterize them. And what does that mean? I basically save them for next season. And so how I usually do that is I will pick or harvest all the peppers off my pepper plants. I will dig them up, be careful to try to preserve as much of the roots as possible. And I will pull them up, put them in a pot. Usually at the bottom of the pot, I put some kind of fertilization or fertilizer. And I'll clip off about half of the leaves and the stems and put them in the greenhouse towards the back. They don't need much sun. They don't need much water. They're just gonna lay dormant all winter long so that early spring, I'll have my peppers ready to go without having to wait months for them to grow from seed. I've also done that with my tomatillos, which also take a long time and I love them. As well as I'm trying some experimentation with Thai basil and some other plants. Keep in mind, you can do this typically with most plants that are perennial in hot climates, but are usually annual in cooler climates. And so just think of, a lot of those fruits and vegetables that grow in tropical places that you may want to grow, in the South or other places like that. Even though we have a shorter summer period, usually those plants die off and we have to start all over again. But you can usually overwinterize them if you're careful, and they'll usually come back again for the next season. Keep in mind, certain plants have a short lifespan, so they may only come back 1 or 2 seasons and then be completely done. Or no matter what you do, like certain basils, just go to seed no matter what. And that's okay. You'll just enjoy them for a while you have them. And keep in mind, I'll probably go into this more in another video, so be on the lookout. And if you don't choose to jumpstart your winter garden and you just want to wait until the spring, get an early start. Place some compost and fertilizer in your beds now that can break down throughout the winter so that your soil will already be revitalized when you're ready to put those spring plants in and will get to growing right away. Also keep in mind, you can start seedlings early indoors using a heating mat and some grow lights. And this will help you be ready for when the last frost hits, you can put those babies in the ground and get them going. All right, folks, those are the 3 tips that I have for you for winterizing your spring garden, as well as creating a fabulous winter garden. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and look out for more to come. Happy gardening!